bombshell information has come out in the last 20 to 24 hours ever since I made my video yesterday about Yamada Taro getting officially elected in Japan. He's someone that is very pro-freedom of expression, he is someone that is anti-censorship, and he's also a very outspoken and big advocate for fighting back against payment processors like Visa and MasterCard. And so when he won the election yesterday, it was a big step in the right direction, because for years now, Japan has been facing a crisis. You have these payment processors like Visa and MasterCard that has been forcing their will upon Japanese culture and forcing small businesses, big businesses, small retail stores and everything in Japan to self-censor themselves, or they will not be able to make money. For those that are wondering why Visa and MasterCard have so much weight behind them, it's because they are the card that transfers your money from your bank to being able to make a purchase. They're the middleman, so to speak. And these individuals have so much power and have so much weight and grip on cash flow that if they don't work with you, most likely your business is not really going to be able to make money. So you can see why a lot of businesses in Japan have been self-censoring themselves because of the involvement of these payment processors like Visa and MasterCard. And I've made multiple videos on this topic going on length of how this is bad and how dangerous it is, and we had a brief glimpse at just how dangerous this really is getting, at least into the mainstream audience, which happened a few days ago. Now that the stage has been set, I can finally talk about all the new stuff that's came out about collective shout and payment processors and censorship and everything for the last 20 to 24 hours. And as you can see, I have a lot of different tabs opened up here at the top of the screen, and I'm going to be going over all of these in this video, but I wanted to focus on this first because what this represents is an escalation of the payment processor issue, and what was once a very niche story, what was once not very well known and only select very niche communities were aware of, like for instance anime and manga communities and even some parts of the gaming community, now it's reached into the area of mainstream to where those that are not even associated with gaming, anime, and manga are going to become aware of the payment processing issue. It spreads awareness and basically showcases that it's no longer something that can be easily ignored, especially when you have one of the richest people in the entire world commenting on the situation. So what does this represent? What does this post mean? Well, I need to give clarification on what Yeet is commenting on. So I covered this yesterday in my video, but this is the, gaming subreddit that made a post about Visa Japan, basically saying that, they were censoring content and all that, anime and manga content, for clarification, all in the name of brand protection. I made a complete video literally on this subject last year. And basically, the gaming subreddit managed to find that article yesterday, and they started to find out what Visa and MasterCard has been up to, and how it's contributing to what's happening to gaming. For instance, how Steam took down hundreds of games thanks to collective shout, requesting those games to be taken down, and basically talking to payment processors, like for instance, PayPal, Visa, MasterCard, JCB. You get the point. But pretty much the gaming subreddit was getting up to date on the information, and they were becoming aware of the issue. Then we had Grums here comment on it, basically talking about the situation, which spread more awareness to eventually Elon Musk commenting on it. Now, regardless if you like or hate Elon Musk, you find him cringe, you find him awful, whatever you want to say or apply to him, good or bad, one of the big things, the biggest takeaways from this, even if he might not do anything in terms of actually benefiting or helping everyone out, him commenting on the situation does spread awareness, and it means that it's going to reach more public eyes, more people are going to talk about the situation, which in turn could help the problem with censorship. It could fight back. So this in turn is some good news. This is some light at the end of the tunnel, just depending on how you view it. I know there's going to be a lot of people that might try to spin this as a negative result, because obviously Elon is kind of a controversial guy for people in different circles around the internet, so it makes a lot of sense. But regardless, I think him talking about it and bringing attention to it is pretty important, especially since he's one of the wealthiest people in the entire planet, so yeah, makes sense. Anyways, now, with that being said, though, he's made quite a few comments. I mean, he even retweeted a post that was directly calling out MasterCard and Visa. You could see it right here. He literally reposted. So it shows that he is being an opposition towards the payment processors. He is calling them out, which is a pretty big deal. I mean, once again, one of the wealthiest people in the entire planet calling you out says enough. So I don't know if necessarily him making a separate entity like X-like payments that he mentioned here in this other post will actually do anything, but I do think, like I said, him acknowledging the issue is a pretty big deal. Now, with that being said, we need to shift gears and talk about collective shout. nothing is more damning than a pro-feminist activist organization running defense for cuties, of all things. Especially when their entire brand, Collective Shout's entire brand, is to run defense for girls and women. But the fact that they straight up went out of their way to run defense for cuties, and then it wasn't just one post, but multiple posts on their main account defending cuties or retweeting people defending cuties, and even having one of their co-founders, this individual right here, actually straight up defending cuties as well, and making a giant, an absolutely Goliath post on Facebook about cuties. It is actually insane. Like, here's the post here. I'm just going to pull it up. Like, look at how massive and a Goliath-sized, like, post to dissect cuties and say that it's a good thing that it came out because it, you know, it needed to happen. It's a good film and all that. It showcases what's wrong or whatever in the world. And it's like, they are completely fine that, like, 11-year-olds are put in these situations in a actual live-action movie. It's really grotesque. It's really disgusting to see. So what's crazy about this is that we have a pro-feminist organization that is meant to try to protect kids and women straight up defending cuties, when it's very obvious there's problems with that, okay? Cuties is not fiction, okay? It's not, like, animated. It's not drawings. It's real kids in very exploitative, like, situations, okay? That's all I'm gonna go. I'm not gonna dive into the lore and talk about every little detail of it, but what I'm saying is, it's pretty damning and gross to see an organization running defense for that alone. However, there's a lot more to this story than just them being affiliated with defending cuties. We also have them having ties with the Australian government. So this individual right here, Jay Viper, he comments that majority of the members that is literally working for Collective Shout has some shape or form worked for the government or the public sector in Australia. And the pictures you're seeing here of the people and the names come directly from the main site of Collective Shout. If you scroll down, you can actually see them and how they pretty much broadcast what they've done and everything in the past and all that, and how pretty much like they might have worked in some parts of the government or still working in some parts of the government. It's some pretty damning stuff. You're probably wondering to yourself, how is them being connected to the Australian government relevant to the conversation about censorship and payment processing and everything else in between? Well, the reason why it's relevant is because we have a timeline of events. We have a timeline when Collective Shout decided to post their, petition in words to payment processors like PayPal, MasterCard, Visa, PaySafe, Discovery, JCB. They went out of their way to contact all of these different payment processors on July 11th. Literally a week and a half ago. In 8 days, by the way, in 8 days after this was sent down, hundreds of Steam games got taken down, and Steam changed their policy to side with payment processors, which is strange, very strange. Like, an activist group shouldn't have this much power. So there was obviously something behind the scenes pulling some weight, doing some push, basically, to Steam to be able to make this happen. And so, the speculation right now is, and obviously this is allegations and speculation, but with all these members of Collective Shout having some form of connection with the Australian government, it makes sense now why maybe Steam responded so swiftly in under just 8 days, because these individuals at Collective Shout are probably working for the government or being paid by the government in some shape or form. So it's starting to make a lot more sense, the timeline of events. Now, once again, these are allegations. This isn't factual yet. This isn't completely fact-checked that, the government is paying them or anything, but it's very clear they have connections within the Australian government, and getting Steam to buckle in 8 days is strange. It is. That's not normal, them responding that quickly to a feminist activist group in Australia, of all places, and have it affect the entire world. Like, I also want to make sure I reinforce that. It's not the fact that this group managed to get games removed from Australia, but they got games removed globally. Globally. So this one country, this one group in a country, managed to get an entire collection of games, hundreds of games, even if you disagree with the content of the games, hundreds of games removed globally. You see the issue there. Now, you're probably wondering why you're looking at such an ancient article from 2017, and trust me, it's very relevant, and it's going to blow you away once I reveal it, or if you haven't already noticed it. But basically, if you zoom in here to Melinda Tankard-Reist, you will literally see that this individual right here that is commenting about video game characters in fiction is the exact same person that was running defense for Cuties, but also the exact same person that is a co-founder of a Collective Shout, as you can see here. So this person in general has been in the space, the gaming space, the journalist space, and all that for almost a decade plus, commenting on stuff and trying to get games censored. It doesn't just stop here, it gets a lot deeper than that. Now, most of you might be unaware of who this is, but this is an Australian senator that tried to get all anime and manga banned back in 2020, which created quite a stink in 2020. A lot of content creators talked about it, for instance, like Lost Pause, The Anime Man, I Know I Did, and many others, basically. It was a big talking point within the anime and manga community back in 2020, and there was memes created of this, and this senator tried to argue that all anime and manga should be banned, and he used Goblin Slayer, Arrow Manga Sensei, No Game No Life, and Sword Art Online as examples to why it should be banned. And he goes off and starts talking about Goblin Slayer in a completely inaccurate way, pretty much saying like the whole point of the series is for people to, you know, be basically sexualized and harmed or whatever, when the very main character is taking down goblins, destroying them because they're literally a burden to society and they are harming everyone involved. The whole point is to get rid of goblins, but the senator tries to argue that because the content exists in general, even if it's being depicted in a bad light, it means that it shouldn't exist. Basically, the story actively says the goblins are evil. I mean, that's the reason why Goblin Slayer exists. But he's saying that because there's taboo content in general with it, it shouldn't exist. Everything about it should be banned. So you can see why there was a lot of people that had issues with this back in 2020. So you're probably wondering, how is this connected? How is this connected to Collective Shout? How is this connected to payment processors? Well, we're getting into that now. So this person, you can see I quote retweeted, is actually a member of, you guessed it, Collective Shout. They got their hands in everything. So if it's not them running defense for Cuties, it's not them being affiliated with the government to some degree or ex-workers of the government and having some very shady operations, being able to get Steam to remove games, hundreds of games in under 8 days, they now have actively worked with senators or cheered on senators to ban anime in the entirety of Australia. So this group has clearly been working in the background for a very long time, actively doing things maliciously, getting things censored and banned for a very long time. It can be traced back like basically a decade ago. There's tons of articles with their names attached to like gaming and just trying to get female characters censored or toned down and all that. It's very clear that there is something very big going on with this group. Obviously, there is a big organization probably backing them, most likely the government, because I don't think Steam would have buckled as quickly as they did if it wasn't some form of massive government kind of pulling the strings. Now, this gets into the topic of payment processors. So payment processors clearly are trying to force different cultures and stuff to bend to their will to make as much money as possible, despite them obviously showcasing they don't really care about people because they allow OnlyFans to exist. They allow, you know, payments and stuff to OnlyFans and, you know, actual exploitive material to be existing on OnlyFans, but they will try to censor all fiction. And they'll listen to this activist group and all that says, hey, you're allowing Steam to use your payments to buy this goods. You know, why are you allowing this? It's very clear that these payment processors are just as malicious or even more so. They should definitely not be a monopoly, and it's crazy that our different governments around the world are even allowing this to happen in the first place, because at this point, Visa and MasterCard and everyone else that's affiliated might as well be a government in itself, because it's like they have so much power that they're not really tied to one single, I guess, country. They have multiple countries that they're tied with, and they can just hold so much money and keep everyone under control. It's pretty concerning. So, to make a long story short, a lot of stuff has come out. A lot of crazy stuff. I wanted to bring to light this entire situation because it's very damning, and it showcases the complete hypocrisy of Collective Shout, these payment processors, and also how this information is reaching into the mainstream. Wanted to just get it all out there. But I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching. Be safe, stay healthy. Chibi out.